Hello and welcome, I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching The World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top headlines of the hour. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney meets Chinese leader Xi Jinping in Beijing to seek a new trade deal. The visit marks a major reset after nearly a decade of strained Canada-China relations. Venezuelan opposition leader Maria Corina Machado says she presented her 2025 Nobel Peace Prize medal to President Trump during a White House meeting. The Norwegian Nobel Committee says the prize cannot be transferred, and Trump praises the gesture but still does not endorse her. Denmark says any US acquisition of Greenland is out of the question and violates international law and sovereignty. The statement comes after the White House says European troops have not changed Trump's goal to acquire the island. Trump announces the creation of a board of peace to oversee efforts to end the war in Gaza. The White House says the body will focus on diplomatic and security steps towards stability. US officials warn Iran at the UNSC that all options remain on the table over a deadly crackdown on protesters. Activists say more than 3,000 people have been killed as Iran maintains an internet blackout. Israeli strikes kill at least 10 Palestinians in Gaza as the US says ceasefire talks have moved to a second phase. Health officials report a 16-year-old is among the dead after homes are hit in Deir el-Bala. European soldiers begin arriving in Greenland to boost security after talks reveal a fundamental disagreement with the US. France, Germany, Norway and Sweden are taking part in the deployment. President Trump threatens to invoke the Insurrection Act to deploy US military troops to Minnesota to quell protests over ICE action. The warning follows clashes in Minneapolis after a federal agent shot a man in the leg, and protests surged after a fatal shooting by an ICE officer last week. We start this hour with our ongoing coverage in the situation in Iran, and US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff suggests that the Trump administration prefers a diplomatic resolution rather than a military one to the ongoing tensions with the country. Meanwhile, Portugal has joined the growing list of countries which have suspended their embassy operations in Iran. Lisbon announced a temporary closure of its embassy in Tehran, citing a context of tension. The country has also advised its citizens not to travel to Iran. Portugal's foreign ministry said in a statement that 8 Portuguese citizens had already left Iran and others were preparing to do the same. Meanwhile, the Indian government plans to evacuate its nationals from the country as protests continue. According to reports, the first group of evacuees could be flown out as early as today, subject to clearances and ground conditions. Joining us to discuss this ongoing situation is Rupinder Sachdev, an international affairs expert. He joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us, Rupinder. It's a pleasure to talk to you, of course. Let's start with the statements from the US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff that says the Trump administration here is preferring a diplomatic resolution. What do they want to resolve here in terms of the protests, and what sort of developments do you see coming out of this situation if and when the United States and Iran resume diplomatic negotiations?
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be with you and your viewers. I think in the big picture, what America wants and Israel wants is for Iran to give up its nuclear program. That is the fundamental issue at stake, right? Now, and not only the nuclear program, but also further development of its missiles program, like the range and the lethality of the missiles that, or the delivery vehicles that Iran is developing. The third thing which America and Israel wanted was that Iran should stop, promoting, helping, encouraging, arming, Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis. Now, this third piece has more or less been taken care of, right? During the past couple of years or more of the Gaza war, Hezbollah has been decimated. Syria also has been, to some extent, neutralized, and Houthis are right now, I mean, perhaps busy within their internal these things. So, what America wants, and we must remember that it's not only America, it's Israel. It's the combo of the two. It's the combo pack. What they want is for Iran to give up its nuclear program. That's the big picture. Now coming to the what's happening in the now. In the now, what is happening? Of course, we are seeing the cumulative effect or impact of the economic sanctions on Iran over the years, which has led to this current economic distress in Iran. And that, in any case, is the objective of sanctions when America imposes that the country on which, excuse me, on which the sanctions are imposed, slowly, it corrodes the economic growth and engine of the country. People get dissatisfied, people come to the streets, and people overthrow the regime. So that's the intent of these sanctions, and that's what we've seen play out in Iran to an extent. Now,
Yeah.
at this
Apologies. I
point
just want to come from a different angle, of course. Diplomatic negotiations, when the Trump administration started, we saw nuclear negotiations when it came to getting rid of Iran's nuclear program, which the United States did want. These negotiations, however, they were indirect and eventually came to an end when the United States bombed the nuclear facilities at the end of the 12-day war with Israel. In reality, is there any trust there that diplomatic negotiations can be taken forward with?
you're so very right. In fact, the Iranians have a saying, trust in God, but tie your camel in the night. Okay. So you cannot trust, and you cannot trust even the Americans. For example, when the bombing of nuclear facilities occurred, Trump said that we are in discussions for the next 2 weeks, right? But on the fourth day, the bombings happened. Similarly, right now, America could be playing a deception game, right? Saying that diplomacy is a way forward, but tomorrow, tonight, any one day, fine day, we may see the impact of American forces. But that said, as of now, it does seem that somehow America is looking perhaps to avoid an attack on Iran. Couple of things. One, there seems to be a view developing in DC that attacking may, in fact, create support and nationalism in favor of the regime. If you remember, during the Israel war with Iran and the American attacks, there was a surge in nationalism within the country in support of the regime. So they may be calculating that an attack, unless it takes out, or it could take out whatsoever, but it could in fact have a reverse objective in terms of shoring up support for the regime, and which, by the way, on the ground, there seems to be substantial support for the regime also. What we are consuming is mostly what we are, fed or given by the Western media, broadly speaking, that there are protests happening, there are killings happening, yes. But other alternate media, and particularly I've been watching Russia Today and Al Jazeera and all, they do convey that there are huge support or demonstrations in support of the regime also. So that is a dynamic out there. So
Okay.
that could be one reason that America is kind of holding off right now, and rather waiting for the regime to totter on its own, because you got another 25% sanctions now, by the way, right? So with
Yes.
these additional 25% sanctions, whatsoever trade Iran is doing will be further crippled. With further crippling, the troubles, the travails of the common citizens will rise even more, and they will get even more angrier at the clergy and the current regime. And whatsoever it be, the regime in power does not have any silver wand or a magic bullet to take care of the problem. So there is no hope out there. So America may be betting on this strategy that let the things kind of wither on their own to a further extent, and then maybe a final crippling blow could be there.
Rubinder, do stay with us as we move on next to a related development. And oil prices have fallen about 4%, ending a 5-day winning streak after US President Donald Trump said violence in Iran's crackdown on protesters appeared to be easing. Brent crude, the global benchmark, dropped sharply, while US West Texas Intermediate also slid, reversing much of the gains seen earlier in the week as markets reacted to the shift in geopolitical risk. Donald Trump stated that he had been told killings linked to protests in Iran were stopping and that there was currently no plan for large-scale executions, adopting a wait-and-see posture after earlier warnings of possible intervention. Adding to the supply outlook, Venezuela has begun reversing oil production cuts made under a US embargo, and crude exports are resuming, lifting expectations of more global supply. Of course, Rubinder, Venezuela and Iran sit at first and third, respectively, of the world's largest proven oil reserves. How does the political discontent affect how people are buying oil, how the market is worldwide currently, especially in these two vastly oil-rich countries?
Thank you. I think the year 2026 would be a very interesting year in terms of the crude prices. Big picture is that, one, Trump would like the oil prices to be in the range of about $50 a barrel. Right now they're around at $60, 61, or WTI Brent, as you're saying, a dip or up, whatever it be. Trump would like that to be around $50 a barrel. And especially with regards to the elections, the midterm elections in November, which are coming up in America. So that's the wish of America, and America does guide, the world oil or impact world oil prices. Secondly, Venezuelan oil is already in the market now. Out of about 30 to 50 million barrels, which were in stock in Venezuela because they were producing, but they were not able to get them out. 4 million barrels have been lifted, I think, 2 days ago. Okay, and they've been taken by, one is a Singapore-based trading company, Trafigura, I think, and another one is a London or Switzerland-based oil trader, two large oil traders to whom the Americans have turned and asked them to pick up the cargo, and that cargo would now be heading to the US as of now. So in any case, Venezuelan oil is starting to come back in the market. And also remember, Venezuelan oil, when it was in the market previously, was in quote unquote, let's say, in the illegal or shadow markets, right? Now, when the Venezuelan oil comes, it will be quote unquote in the regular legal market. So that would have some impact in lowering the oil prices without doubt. That's the Venezuela part. And as production ramps up, this is the previous productions, right, of Venezuela. As production could be ramped up in Venezuela, we will see about 1 million, 2 million barrels a day of Venezuelan oil coming into the market pretty soon in the next few months. Separate. So America is sitting on Venezuela as a colony now, right? The regime may be whatsoever, but the regime has agreed, it seems, to quote unquote obey what the Viceroy Marco Rubio tells it, and they're going along with it. The Iranian piece of the equation is slightly different. That remains to be seen how this current standoff plays. But in any case, Iranian oil could come to the market, legal markets, let's say, in some time, if the standoff is resolved. We do not know when. Okay. So the Iranian one will be more a variable. As of now, we don't know where, etc. But at least the Venezuelan oil coming into the markets means that the world oil markets, crude markets, will have a downward trend.
Rupinder Sachdev, do stay with us once again as we have some breaking news coming in from the war in Europe's east. And 22 Ukrainian drones targeted Russia's Ryazan region, according to Governor Pavel Malkolov. The attack damaged 2 apartment buildings, including one that was unoccupied, and already 4 residents. 2 people were wounded but on site and received no aid, but no one was killed as far as we know. And fragments also fell on an industrial facility where authorities are now assessing the damage. The governor described the incident as an act of terror against civilians. Another update in the ongoing war in Ukraine. Rubinder joins us once again. Apologies. We move on to our next story. We move over to the United States now, and US President Donald Trump has threatened to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota. The warning comes after days of angry protests in Minneapolis over a surge in immigration agents. Trump said he could deploy the military if state leaders fail to stop what he called violent agitators targeting ICE officers. The threat followed an incident in which an immigration officer shot a Venezuelan man in the leg as he fled a traffic stop. Tensions have been high since an ICE agent fatally shot a US citizen earlier this week. Protests have spread since, with confrontations outside a federal building in Minneapolis. Federal agents used smoke to clear a driveway and push protesters back. No serious injuries, however, were reported. Authorities say all options remain under review. Ravinder Sachdev joins us once again to discuss the ongoing situation in the United States. Of course, Donald Trump's immigration crackdown remains a highly contentious issue in the United States following the killing of Renee Nicole Good last week. Of course, Donald Trump now mulling using this Insurrection Act, which would see military troops brought into the city of Minneapolis, a Democrat stronghold, and of course subject to the Black Lives Matter protests back in 2020. How would the imposition of further federal troops, this time the National Guard, fees in a city which is Democrat-led and also subject to these protests across the city?
I mean, this is unknown, unpredictable, new territory into which the United States is going. One big question here is that, the separation or the powers which the federal government has versus what the state government and local authorities have. One, that's a big tussle going on there. And then on top of it is the question of Trump saying that he would invoke the Insurrection Act. The question before is that even does the situation warrant imposition of the Insurrection Act? Okay, so it is definitely becoming a very complicated situation, I do think. And Trump seems to be bent on, imposing law and order. Another thing is that you see what's happening is the ICE agents, the Immigration and Customs agents, enforcement, right? They are typically not trained to handle crowds or such local situations. It's typically the local police or some other local agencies, and even the National Guard would be better at handling, crowds as compared to the ICE agents. So their inherent training is not with the crowd psychology or a mob psychology in mind, whereas the other agencies have more of those, trainings to be able to handle those situations. That is why we are seeing that when ICE agents are getting involved, things are quickly ratcheting up, and we are seeing such incidents happen. And definitely, yes, there is a huge sense of, I think, anger and frustration amongst many people. Sure, some people are definitely illegal immigrants who need to be picked up, maybe, but what's happening? There is a target given to the ICE is about, I think, 1,000 people a day they should be able to, arrest towards deportation. Now, in pursuit of those target numbers, the ICE agents are, spreading their net wide and engaging or arresting or pulling up or profiling people whom they're suspicious of, and therefore comes the issue of whole. There's a lot of racial profiling going on, no doubt, without doubt there. And many people who may be, legal citizens or who may be on in fact, even a legal work visa or such, or farm workers, farm visa kind of things, they are being drawn up. And this is definitely creating a very tense situation in the United States.
Ravinder Sachdev, thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to speak to you here on the programme. We now move on and over to the Indo-Pacific, and the former South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol is due to face the first court ruling stemming from criminal charges over his failed martial law attempt. a case that could result in a long prison sentence if he is found guilty. However, Yoon has been found guilty of not following due process before declaring martial law, as the Constitutional Court's judge has stated that he was guilty of fabricating official documents related to the declaration. According to reports, Yoon will be sentenced for up to 10 years in jail, as he has been convicted of fabricating the official documents. Okay, we're now joined by Dr. Sanjay Kumar. He's a journalist joining us live from the Korea Herald in the South Korean capital. Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, for joining us. Of course, the charges that he's facing today, one of four of the main ones that the former South Korean leader is facing, the obstruction of justice. What more can you tell us about the events that led up to this charge in particular? Of course, it all came down to that martial law declaration, but this charge here, what more can you tell us about it?
Thomas, Yoon Suk-yeol is not going through a good time, his worst time, I think, in his life. He is standing 8 trials, including the allegations of corruptions on his wife and the death of a Marine in 2023. So in total, 8 trials he is standing, and it includes the insurrection one also. Just last week, special prosecutors have even asked for death penalty for him in that trial. So, many trials and court rulings are going to happen in coming days. This is one of them. The another one is on February 19 as well, the major ones. So, it's very simple to understand that definitely he is going to be punished, but the extent of punishment has raised many concerns in Korea, because the the supporters of Yoon Suk-yeol still, they are not in huge number, they are very handful, but it is very disheartening to them, and the ruling party is being alleged by the opposition that they are trying to be more harsh, and there is a political polarization here also. But for Yoon and his wife, I'm sure that they are going to face very harsh punishments. I hope he would not get the death penalty, because I personally am not in support, and many here think that, although he is guilty, but he must not be, like South Korea should not set an example of such kind of verdict. And it would also be very exclusive in nature, because after 2018 he is going to be the 3rd president of South Korea, and again from the conservative bloc, to be in such kind of situation and to face such kind of verdict. So again, it is going to polarize again. Yeah.
And Dr. Kumar, of course, following this, as you said, we saw the 3 leaders of South Korea within months. This trial, of course, is ongoing, with Yoon facing insurrection, obstruction of justice, abuse of power, falsification of documents, and other related charges, as you previously mentioned. How is South Korea politically currently, with Lee Jae-myung at the hall? Is it politically stable now?
Politically, it is completely stable, because the government is stable here, and there is no polarization in terms of ruling the administration or running the administration. But the problematic thing is in the political circles, because political circles are accusing each other, and they are asking to even investigate the current president Lee Jae-myung also, and some other political figures. So there is a accusation kind of politics from both the sides, which is going to increase. It is already intensified. So this, it is not like the opposition party right now is saying that why it is happening against Yoon Suk-yeol. No, it is a legal trial. It is up to the prosecutors. It is up to the courts and the constitutional system of Korea to decide. And rule the verdict. But the problem here is that this Yun case should not be done from a very politically motivated angle and politically motivated loaded action, and that is why they are asking, I mean, many politicians here are asking to initiate investigations not just against the conservatives, but also those who are from the liberal bloc, or you can say the Democratic Party. There are many, investigations pending also. So this is creating a kind of political chaos. Okay, but this political chaos is not related to the entire ruling system or the or running the administration of entire South Korea. South Korean government remains stable, the society remains stable. There is no issue in that direction.
Dr. Sanjay Kumar, thank you very much for joining us and taking the time. It's always a pleasure to speak to you. We now move on and stay in the region, and devastated residents in southern Seoul watched their homes burn as a major fire ripped through a hillside slum. The blaze broke out at around 5:10 in the morning in Guryong village inside the wealthy Gangnam district. Nearly 300 firefighters were deployed along with 85 fire trucks. No casualties have been reported so far, but 47 residents were evacuated from the densely packed settlement. About 110 people live in the affected area, and authorities have raised the alert to the second highest level. Fire crews feared the flames could spread to a nearby mountain. Guryong village is Seoul's largest remaining shanty town. We'll of course bring you all the updates coming out of South Korea as soon as we get them. We move on now, and publishers Hachette Book Group and Cengage Group have asked a California federal court for permission to intervene in a proposed class action lawsuit against Google over the alleged misuse of copyrighted material used to train its artificial intelligence systems. The publishers said in their proposed complaint that the tech company engaged in one of the most prolific infringements of copyrighted materials in history to build its AI capabilities, copying content from Hachette Books and Cengage textbooks without any permission. The lawsuit currently involves groups of visual artists and authors who sued Google for allegedly misusing their work to train its generative AI systems. The case is one of many high-stakes lawsuits brought by artists, authors, music labels, and other copyright owners against tech companies over their AI training. The publishers have cited 10 examples of their textbooks and other books that Google allegedly misused from authors, including Scott Turow and N.K. Jamisin, to train its Gemini large language model. That's all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.